A new year, a new Iceberg. This year we're doing a dedicated Fallout 4 Iceberg. It's a compilation of interesting lore, trivia, theories, and Easter eggs, all related to the hit 2015 game. The first tier we'll be covering today is what I'm calling the trivia tier. Let's get into it. The cat problem. We're starting off this tier with a hotly contested entry, and that is the existence of cats. If you've played some of the earlier games, you'd notice that they're completely devoid of cats. There are dogs, but no cats. Stacy in the Den notes that folks had to resort to eating their domesticated cats during one particularly tough famine, and Mr. House goes on to say that they're entirely extinct. However, in Fallout 4, there are cats. So, what gives? Well, while Fallout 4 marks the first appearance of a cat in-game, believe it or not, they do exist in lore. It's not a, retcon. Citizens in Broken Hills have dialogue mentioning that their cat's breath, note the present tense, smells like cat food. Well, obviously. We now have two conflicting pieces of dialogue. Who to believe? The Fallout 2 NPC that apparently owns a cat, or the New Vegas NPC character that thinks they've gone extinct? Could they have gone extinct in the time between Fallout 2 and New Vegas? Sure. But could House have simply been wrong? Also sure. After all, why would a guy so focused on the Strip and the Mojave know about what's going on outside of his sphere of influence? How could he possibly come to the conclusion that because he hasn't seen a cat, it must mean that they're extinct? That's some object permanence issue right there. Despite some cries about it at the launch of the game, cats existing in Fallout 4 is not a retcon. Vault-tec phone number. Plastered on the vault-tec calendars across the game is what seems to be a phone number to call vault-tec, 1-888-4-vault-tec. Before we get further into this entry, do not call this number. It is not a Fallout Easter egg anymore, so do not give it a ring. Well, this number made its first appearance in the E3 trailer for Fallout 3 way back in 2008. This Easter egg got incredibly popular with the success of Fallout 4. Upon giving it a ring, you would have been met with an automated message from vault-tec. Here's the audio for you.
Thank you for calling Vault, your first choice in post-nuclear survival. We're sorry, but due to unexpectedly high call volume, all representatives are currently busy. Please stay on the line, and someone will be with you as soon as possible. There are callers in front of you. Estimated wait time. Thank you. Calling Vault. Have a wonderful day.
As you can hear, it'll be a real long wait before you're put on with someone that is not just some automated messenger. However, the reason I say do not call the number anymore is because it doesn't belong to Fallout anymore. But what you can call in text, at least as of this video's release, is the phone number that appears in Cooper Howard's vault-tec commercial in Amazon's Fallout TV show. 213-25-VOLT. But be warned, I'd turn your volume down. Upon giving the number a ring, you're met with the screams of some guy. It can be a bit of a jump scare. Here it is. But unlike the 188 number, you can also text the Fallout TV show number. The reply you'll receive reads, "Thank you for texting vault-tec. The next available appointment is in 33 weeks from now. Please stand by." It's a neat little Easter egg that calls back to one from 2008. It's cool. Crashed UFO. I know many of these I've probably gone over already in videos past, but I am a firm believer that there is at least one person in the world watching right now, unaware of what I'm about to talk about. After reaching level 20, a random encounter might occur. If you're quick about it, you might notice an object appear soaring across the sky, falling down in a high-speed crash. If not, your companion will probably make some sort of comment about it. Then, if one heads in and around Oberlin Station, they will find some disturbed soil, burnt foliage, and a downed flying saucer. Nearby, a green blood trail leads you to a cave, and inside said cave is a wounded alien. On their corpse will be the infamous alien blaster pistol, a weapon that has made a frequent appearance in the series. Now, the coolest part, and the part that you might not know about, is the technical side of the encounter. I went over it in a video about Fallout 4 unmarked locations before, but I'll do it again here as I think it's quite interesting. So Reddit user Dante Alighieri did a bit of research into the UFO Crash site and the encounter. It's within the creation kit that they discovered the crash site is triggered by a quest, UFO Crash Quest. The quest calls upon 3 quest aliases. These are UFO 01 Activator. This is the UFO item which also plays the flyover sounds and the explosion sounds. Then there's UFO Crash Enable Reference, which is an object that enables all the damage that's associated with the site and disables how the site would look without the UFO. And lastly, it calls Companion, which likely detects which companion you currently have and plays their voice line related to the crash. How cool is that? In my opinion, very, very cool. Anyway, that's one of the reasons why I called this the trivia tier. Moving on. Cask of Amontillado. This entry could probably make for a Fallout pop culture short, so stay tuned for that in the future. Maybe. Fallout 4 takes place in the Commonwealth, or what would have been pre-war Boston, Massachusetts. As such, it's no surprise that the game features a handful of references to the famed poet, author, and Boston native, Edgar Allan Poe. One such reference can be found in the castle. In the room with the corpse of the former Minutemen General, General McGann, there is a crate of Amontillado wine and a skeleton partially buried behind a wall. All of this makes reference to Poe's short story, The Cask of Amontillado. In the short story, a man named Montresor hates some guy named Fortunato after being insulted. As revenge, Montresor lures Fortunato into a cellar, promising him a drink of the fine Amontillado wine. But this was merely a bait, and instead Montresor buried Fortunato alive inside of a wall. So the skeleton is meant to be Fortunato. Inspecting the wine bottle's label reveals that it is Montresor Amontillado wine, with the name P. Edgar underneath it. And Poe was inspired to write the story while serving the United States Army at Fort Independence, aka the Castle. It's a neat reference that many may not have picked up on at first. Diamond City Celebrations. Holidays are a great way to come together as a community and share in some festivities. Even in the Wasteland, holidays are celebrated. If one ventures to Diamond City on the in-game dates of Halloween and Christmas, the market will be decorated with various ornaments. On October 31st, Halloween, the town will have banners, plastic pumpkins, and other Halloween-related decorations like black cats, skeletons, and weird pumpkin people like the ones from over the garden wall. And on December 25th, Christmas, the town will have colorful lights and Christmas trees. It's a cool little Easter egg that shows even though the world has ended, folks still find time to celebrate the holidays. Not all from the old world was lost. The real Nick Valentine. It's not an iceberg without at least a little bit of lore. When one says Nick Valentine, we are most often talking about Nick Valentine, the synth owner of the Valentine Detective Agency in Diamond City. However, this isn't the original Nick Valentine. The real Nick Valentine was a pre-war Chicago police detective. At some point, the renowned detective was transferred to Boston's PD, moving to the city with his fiancée, Jennifer. It's there that he was assigned to a case to take down crime boss Eddie Winter. While Valentine gathered incriminating evidence, Eddie planned a counterattack of his own, offing Valentine's fiancée. At the same time, Boston's district attorney was planning on taking down other criminal families in the Boston area. To do this, the AG office promised Eddie immunity in exchange for testifying against the other families. This brought Valentine's case and plan for revenge to a halt. This incident irreparably damaged the dejected detective. To cope with the trauma, Valentine sought out an experimental brain scanning program at the Commonwealth Institute of Technology. While this scan may or may not have helped the detective, we don't know, it did help a certain post-war organization with their own experimental project. A century after the human Nick Valentine's head was scanned, the Institute would use the scan to create a prototype synthetic human, the Nick Valentine that we currently know. While all this information is discovered during Nick's companion quest, a long time coming, it is an important piece of lore that contextualizes the background lore for the game. Reeb Marina twins. Found east of the Revere satellite array is the Reeb Marina. Soon after the Great War, the old marina became home to a pair of twins, Eugene and Malcolm. The brothers worked together to try and repair some of the boats in the harbor in order to escape the craziness of the early days following the war. A pair of terminals, one from each brother, documents their stories. At first, the two are thankful that they survived and are together. Eugene writes, "I'm glad Malcolm is here. Family have to stick together." And Malcolm writes, "Family sticks together through thick and thin." Though cracks between their relationship began to show. Malcolm wanted to sail north, Eugene wanted to go south. Polar opposites, literally. Blood was proving to not be thicker than water. The twins' fates would finally turn deadly on December 18, 2077. About 56 days after the bombs fell, the two had separately decided that the other had to die. The brothers had each manipulated the security protocols of their Mr. Handies that worked on the site. When the sole survivor visits the Reeb Marina centuries later, they discover just what happened. The sole survivor will be greeted by the Handies who will say, "Hello, Eugene. Your brother Malcolm has prepared a surprise for you." They'll then lead you to a room with a birthday sweet roll. However, they'll then say, "Happy birthday, Eugene," before ambushing the player. It's a unique encounter and an interesting bit of lore that some might have missed. It also gives a bit of insight into how folks who survived the Great War viewed the world and the decisions they made. It's kinda cool. Chinese assault rifle. Now we're getting into a bunch of Fallout 4 cut content, specifically cut weapons. In another world, this tier would be called the cut content tier. The Chinese assault rifle is one of my favorite weapons in Fallout 3, but we've yet to see the weapon again in subsequent releases. Sure, there's the handmade rifle, but it's not the same. But at one point in time, perhaps the Chinese assault rifle would have been featured in Fallout 4. Found within the game files is an untextured but high polygon model that appears to resemble my beloved Chinese assault rifle. However, while this rifle would never see the light of the Commonwealth, we would get a similar looking weapon with the release of the Nuke World DLC. The handmade rifles that the Nuke World Raiders use would share that similar Kalashnikov appearance that the Fallout 3 Chinese assault rifle had. This would do. Unused Harpoon Gun. Another cut weapon is the original Harpoon Gun. While a ship-mounted Harpoon Gun could be found in the Far Harbor DLC, there exists within the game files a rough model for a more handheld version. This model appears different from the ones we got in Far Harbor. It sort of looks a bit like a crossbow. It looks like some sort of compressor launches a harpoon from the barrel. Several spare harpoons appear to be attached to some apparatus for easy reloading. Because this version of the Harpoon Gun can be found in the game files for the base game, many speculate that it was likely related to the infamous cut side quest, 20 Leagues Under the Sea. More on that in a future tier. For now, the Harpoon Gun we did get is this big and bulky harpoon blaster. To be honest though, both are kinda cool. The cut harpoon gun sorta reminds me of the dart gun from Fallout 3. It has that makeshift sorta look to it. Anyway, let me know in the comments which version of the harpoon gun you prefer. On to the next. Nuke and Mortar. Another cut weapon or weapons are the Nuke and Mortar. While they technically can be found in-game, they're only available through the normally inaccessible test cells. Both weapons look identical to the broadsider weapon that is given to the player after the completion of the side quest, The Last Voyage of the USS Constitution. However, instead of firing cannonballs, it fires an ammo called a nuke or a mortar. The mortar shares similar characteristics to the cannonball, so it's essentially just an unobtainable broadsider. But the nuke does cause a giant missile to shoot out of the barrel, so it's kinda just like another mini-nuke, though it is quite funny when you fire it. Based on their names and lack of further design, I'd imagine that they acted as some sort of test weapons for mortar launches and nuke launches. The cutting room floor supports this theory, stating that the mortar was presumably used for the Minutemen artillery strikes, and the nuke was likely used for the nuclear missiles fired by the Yangtze submarine. They're neat, but that's about it. Unarmed mini-nuke. So this is an interesting one. Cut from the game is an unarmed variation of the mini-nuke. You heard me right, a mini-nuke melee weapon. Console commanding the weapon into your game and equipping it will show what is usually just an ammo type attached to your hand. And honestly, it kinda slaps. If I had to guess, this version of the mini-nuke once served as a potential way to show the super mutant suiciders holding their armed mini-nukes. But as this mini-nuke knuckle weapon did not make it into the final version of the game, I suppose we will never know. Pipe shotgun. The new year means that it's cutting season. We continue on with what is maybe the most well-known cut weapon from Fallout 4, and that is the pipe shotgun. It's within the game files that an unused and untextured model for a shotgun receiver mod for the pipe gun can be found. Crafting this mod at a weapons bench would allow you to turn your normal pipe guns into shotgun versions of them. In addition to this unused mod, the Art of Fallout 4 concept art book also shows what appears to be some potential designs for a handmade style shotgun. And in fact, Creation Club content released later would include a handmade shotgun, finally adding the rugged gun that was missing from the base game. Despite how well known the pipe shotgun is, we're not quite done with cut content yet. Compound bow. Just like some of the other cut weapons we've mentioned today, this is yet another cut weapon that would eventually make an appearance in a later title or update. It's within the game files for the Far Harbor DLC that one can find the textures and sound files for a compound bow and an arrow ammo type. That's right, Far Harbor would have had us hunting giant mutant salamanders, crustaceans, and other aquatic beasts with a measly elastic string and some pointed wooden sticks. The compound bow would eventually find its way into the Fallout series some years later with the Wastelanders update in Fallout 76. So instead of fighting mutant sea creatures with a bow, we were now fighting massive flying bats with a bow. You know, I think I'll just stick with my handmade rifle, thank you very much. Far Harbor throwing weapons. The last bits of cut content we'll be discussing on this tier of the iceberg, more to come on later tiers, are the many thrown weapons found in the Far Harbor game files. Nearly every Fallout title has featured some sort of non-explosive throwing weapons in it. The only ones that didn't were Fallout 3 and 4. Both these games had only explosives, like grenades, as their form of throwing weapons. But at one point in time, the Far Harbor DLC had planned to change this. The game files feature 7 meshes for planned throwing weapons. These include a glass bottle, a knife, a harpoon with a high-powered magnet, one with dynamite as well, a hatchet, and a saw blade. While we would see a throwing knife and throwing tomahawk and meat cleaver in Fallout 76, the harpoon javelins, bottle, and table saw remain only as ideas we can hope will be recycled. Could you imagine headshotting a ghoul with a saw blade? That would be metal as heck. Pip Boy Games. Did you know that there are actually video games inside of Fallout 4, a video game? Video Game-ception. These games come in the form of holotapes that can be played through your Pip Boy's holotape player. The base game has 5 holotape games, and the Automatron DLC added 1 more. And maybe the coolest thing about them is that they're based on real-life video games. There is Atomic Command, where you get to control an anti-air gun, shooting down missiles and planes before they can hit landmarks at the bottom of the screen. This is based on the 1980 Atari arcade game, Missile Command. Then there is Grognak and the Ruby Ruins. This is a text-based RPG where you play as the infamous Grognak the Barbarian. It is based on the 1985 A Bard's Tale game, developed by the original creators of the Fallout series, Interplay Entertainment. A fun little reference. There is Pipfall, a side-scrolling action-adventure game. You get to play as the Vault Boy as they try and avoid hazards of the wasteland. It is based on the 1982 Activision game, Pitfall. We have Red Menace, a game where you play as Vault Boy, dodging barrels that are being thrown by an anthropomorphic Chinese flag. What a weird idea. Oh, and if you didn't know, this is based on Nintendo's 1981 Donkey Kong. The final holotape game from the base game is Zeta Invaders. You control a cannon as you shoot down waves of aliens and UFOs. It is based on one of my favorite retro video games of all time, Taito's 1978 Space Invaders. And then the Automatron DLC added a holotape game called Automatron. It has you run around as you dodge and take down hostile robots. It is based on VidKid's 1982 arcade game, Robotron 2084. Give them a spin if you haven't. They can be a fun way to pass some time in the dreary wasteland. The Todd Howard painting. One of the more amusing Easter eggs in Fallout 4 is a painting that looks suspiciously like Bethesda's own Todd Howard. The painting can be found hanging in various locations around the Commonwealth, often blending in, making it easy to miss if you're not paying attention. The painting itself is a parody of the infamous Napoleon Crossing the Alps by Jacques-Louis David. However, instead of it being Napoleon on a horse, the face instead bears a striking resemblance to Todd Howard, Fallout 4's game director. It's a charming piece of trivia that just works. Go nuke yourself. And our final entry for the first tier of this year's Iceberg is a somewhat humorous alternate ending to a certain side quest. The Here There Be Monsters side quest takes you to the Unused, a Chinese nuclear submarine hidden off the Boston coast. Captained by Zhao, a ghoul who's been stranded for over 200 years, the sub is a fascinating piece of pre-war history, and also a potential death trap for reckless players. During the quest, Zhao asks you for your help to repair the now immobile sub. It involves collecting some dampening coils from a nearby steel mill and acquiring nuclear fuel from an unfired nuclear warhead aboard the sub. You're then told to insert the dampening coil into the submarine, followed by the warhead. But if you do this in the reverse order, you end up causing the Unused to explode, ending the quest and your life. This darkly humorous outcome is classic Fallout, combining player agency with grim consequences. It's a good reminder to always listen to instructions. Because of the simple nature of this quest, it's likely that many folks missed this unique opportunity to experience one of Fallout 4's most explosive and hilarious deaths. And that wraps up the first tier of our 2025 Fallout 4 Iceberg. Did you learn something new about this nearly 10-year-old game? What was your favorite bit of trivia or lore? Are there any other things that you wish I would mention in later tiers? Let me know. But that's all from me today, folks. If you like the video, be sure to share and subscribe. Stay tuned next week for the second tier. Join the Discord. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.
And today's newspaper just delivered.